Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, president of Fidelis Wealth Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Hey, I wanted to get a quick shout out today to our sponsor, Fidelis Wealth Advisors. Without their sponsorship, we just wouldn't be able to have all these great interviews and meet all these great women. I'm super excited about the chance I have to talk to women in the professional sector. I started this podcast because I wanted to help young women grow and really empower and inspire them. And I found a whole group of other women out there who had the same ideas and goals. And I've just really enjoyed getting to know them. So big shout out to Fidelis for helping out with that. Today we are talking to Codie Winslow. She is the Chief Deputy Clerk and Recorder of Douglas County. And if you don't know what that means, you are not alone. But I looked it up, and basically she is in charge. She does a lot of other things too, but she's in charge of the driver's license office. And the reason I could not wait to get Codie on this show is because she has a 98% approval rating. And if you think about that, I'm not even sure I have a 98% approval rating, and I don't run the DMV. So I wanted to see how she did what she did and all of the cool things that she had to share with us. She's also an author of an inspirational book called Live It Out. And I really like the fact that she doesn't just give you ideas, but inspires you to put those into practice. The idea of taking it from just idea to execution is something that Codie is really good at. So I am so excited to get started. Let's talk to Codie.
I'd like to thank Codie for helping us out with our project. I love the idea talking about making room for other women. I'm really excited about this presentation, and I'd love to hear how Codie has made this an inclusive environment. It's one of our goals here to lift and grow a team. And so I'm really looking forward to this. Thank you so much, Codie. And I'll go ahead and let you take it.
Well, I'm really excited to be here. And I want to say thank you, Lorie and team, for getting this all set up. It's an honor to be able to join you all. So I've been invited to welcoming women to the room. And so I chose to take a spin on it of how do we as strong women, and what I mean by that is sometimes that can have a different connotation, strong in our values, strong in our beliefs and what we bring to the table. And how do we make room for each other in the workplace? And so I'm excited to talk a little bit about my team and what we've been able to do in the last, I'd say, 5 to 7 years in building an inclusive environment, making room for each other. And, my little caveat is really these principles and keys that I want to share aren't just for women. There are a couple of things I want to talk about specifically for us, but these are really universal and in our entire workplace have made a really huge difference. And so that's me. So I am the Chief Deputy Clerk and Recorder for Douglas County Government. And I lead a team of about 100, a little over 100 folks. We have public services that we offer based on laws and statutes. And those are motor vehicle recording, where we do land records, marriage licenses. We also do passports. And we have a driver's license office. And we also do elections. And so that is underway right now. We are currently in the coordinated election. And so my team is busy every day. And one of the things that we've worked on, when I was hired in 2015, I got the opportunity to begin to work on culture and have been able to lead an effort of taking the vision of the clerk at that time and now the new clerk and being able to operationalize that. I got delegated the how. How do we do this? How do we make this a great place to work? So we've been able to take the last 7 years and really work on an engaged and empowered workforce in our office. And Our goal is to make it something people want to come to work every day. If you're going to be away from your family for that many hours, away from your personal investments and your personal life, why can't we make it a great place to be? So some of the ways we do that is what I'm going to talk about today. This one. So this is a picture of our vision, mission, and core values at the Office of Clerk and Recorder. Our vision is to be leaders in customer satisfaction, employee empowerment, and to serve with integrity. And our mission is to serve all citizens and each other with respect, courtesy, transparency, and professionalism. We value growth and development, adaptability, ownership, integrity, communication, and equity. And this process came about through an effort where we created internally with our staff what was called a vision team. So there used to be a poster on the wall when I first got hired. It was very simple, and I didn't see it really very alive. I would say when I came along, maybe we were a little bit more like a typical government office. So I was really excited. And so we engaged the staff. There are a couple of things you need in that situation. And in order to get to this place, was buy-in from the top. So you need to make sure that the leaders of the organization buy into your efforts. Then you're going to build it from the bottom. This is not a top-down thing. If you want to make this a great place to work, anywhere a great place to work, you have to have that building blocks, and you have to engage the stakeholders, which are your staff. Give them a voice, allow them to be heard, they have great ideas. A lot of times we've been in environments, maybe other environments before in our careers where our voices haven't mattered. So we wanted to change that. And then what we did was we called living it out. We agree to live out the values and the mission and the vision every day across all parts of the organization. So we embed that across everything. And so some of the ways we do that, and one of the ways specifically I wanted to point out, I thought of these specific keys for women, but like I said, they do apply to men and women. These are the keys. Number one, we focus on people. We try to make it, you can bring your whole self to work. If you're going to be here over 40, a lot of times 50 hours a week, let's make sure you come to work. And we want you, your whole person, and we want to care about you. Number two, especially as women, this is one I'm going to park on a little bit in a few minutes, is we need to own how we show up. I think we've done as much as possibly in history men have done to us in the workplace. We need to make room for each other, and we need to own how we show up every day, and just assume positive about the other people we're working with, and not face off, if you will. And that kind of takes me to the next one, which is partnering versus competing. How can we value what each of us bring to the table? And how can we get stronger as we partner together? And then the last way is really personal. It's mastering your own mindset. And there are some ways that we can do that. So my first one is about focusing on people. And the way we focus on people starts with valuing each person's unique and natural talents. And many organizations call this DEI work, or, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The way I like to talk about it is about what each individual brings. To me, that is the diversity. And how do we make room for each individual and what makes them special? And one of the ways we do that in our organization is through the Gallup Clifton Strengths Assessment. And so my little plug for Gallup, but we have spent a lot of our time. It's an assessment where you get to learn someone's natural talents. And when those are invested in, they become strengths. And it's a philosophy that's built on focusing on what people naturally do well versus spending a lot of time improving weaknesses. And so if we invest in what people naturally bring to the table, so we find out what do the other women on our team bring? And then I don't have to have everything. I don't have to be it all. What a relief. Isn't that a relief? And so we look at what do other people naturally bring to the table? And we partner and the whole organization gets stronger. Instead of, if I spend a lot of my time trying to improve weaknesses, maybe I'll get 10% better at that thing. But, Lorie is always going to be better at that thing naturally. So why not lean on her? Why not partner with her? And so we try to value that in our organization. Again, I said focus on the whole person, which means we care about their well-being at work. If you were to get involved in what's going on in any of the literature out there today, the research that's out there on well-being, it's what people want. They want, especially younger generations coming into the workforce, even though I'll do a plug for Gen X because I'm a Gen Xer and we work really hard, but sometimes we miss well-being. And so it's come back around and we're getting an opportunity to learn from our younger generations how to respect the whole person and how to allow them, care about them. Sure, they have vacation time, sick time, all these opportunities, but we need to care about why and when they're taking those, like make it important to us. Think about what it would be like to be in their shoes and really have empathy. And we try to do that in our workplace. I want to read a quote from Gallup. It's about, in research they did at looking at 5 different elements: career well-being, social, financial, physical, and community well-being. It showed that the most important element and the most foundational one is career well-being because we spend so much time there. And so that becomes a foundational element in the rest of our overall well-being. So the quote says, there is a reciprocal relationship between work and life overall. That is, people take their work experience home and their home experience to work. It is in both the individual's and the organization's best interest for people to thrive in all aspects of their life. So if I encourage my staff and the other women I work with to take care of themselves, what is your self-care? What part of well-being are you struggling with at the moment? And I allow and encourage them to take care of themselves. That pays back dividends, right? That creates loyalty. They feel that sense of belonging. I belong here. This is like a family to me. And because they feel cared about, their productivity, their efficiency, their effectiveness goes up, right? Because they feel a part of it. And so we focus on the whole person. Like I mentioned, we use the tools, Clifton Strengths. We also use a tool at the county called Emergenetics. And that talks about your preferences and natural ways of thinking and behaving. And so one of the ways we try to focus on people is by flexing, right? How can I understand my teammates and how can I flex to their style, to their natural preferences? So some of it is about honoring their strengths and some of it is about flexing. Like I may have a natural tendency in a certain way, but how can I flex to partner better, right? And so it's really, how do we think of others, not just what we bring to the table? So this is the one, this one's really, I've learned a lot about ownership. It's one of the values at the county and at the clerk's office. I included a quote here. I won't read the whole thing. It's from Charles Swindoll. He's a famous pastor. Famous, I don't know if the pastors are famous, but he's a well-known pastor. But this is about attitude. And ownership to me it's something I can have control over. What can I control? I can control how I show up every day. I can't control if the woman sitting next to me is going to be catty. I can't control if the person in charge is going to do top down. I can't control if the state changes the law. I can't control those things, right? I can't control whether my client shows up, right, for the meeting. That was so important. But what can I control? And so learning to take ownership as women to me is really important. I don't like to sort of take the easy handout or the leg up. Like I want to show up and I want to be responsible, personally responsible for myself. Some of the ways we can do that is, number one, and the most important way I believe, is our attitude. Actions, focus, words, what resources we have. I think as strong women, we can often be misunderstood. I think we can fall into patterns and fear-based behaviors like gossip, judgment. I think we can tend to, at times, tear each other down instead of lift each other up. And the only thing I can control every day is how I show up. So I have to be aware of what I'm contributing. So I believe as strong women in the workplace, we can own our decisions. We can own our choices, our behaviors, our attitudes. We may not get along with everyone or prefer someone's personality. It doesn't mean we can't value who they are. We can't have a respect for who they are. I think that we can both value what we bring to the table and what the other person brings to the table. Kind of like I talked about in our organization, we do that through knowing their strengths, understanding their preferences, but just getting to know people, right? Have a conversation before you jump to an assumption. Get the other side of the story. So it can feel a bit overwhelming at times. We have a couple tools we use that I wanted to share while I'm here. See, this is our first one. It's called an ownership circle. Years ago, I saw in a Harvard Business Review article, I think they called it the control circle. In order to align with our language in our organization, we shifted to ownership circle. So for every one thing outside of my control, which I put in the center. So you can do this, and we hand this out with the bubbles empty, and we work on it with our staff in one-on-ones. If they come to us with an issue or a struggle or something they're facing, sometimes I go, have you done an ownership circle? Like, let's talk about it, or let's do it together right now. Put the thing that's outside of your control in the center of the circle because it's outside your control. But what are the things? So some of the ways we ask ourselves these questions, there's typically 5 things you do have control over to every one thing you don't. And so what are my tools and resources? Who can I partner with? What's within my control at this moment? My attitude, right? Will pausing in this moment help me show up better? The A, we have a tool I'm going to show you next. It's called pause. And the A in the pause means almost anything can wait. If we pause, we probably are going to say it a little bit nicer, a little bit more tact. Right? Or we're going to be able to pause and think about the other person. What would it be like for them in this moment? How can a positive mindset steer the situation? Right? And then, why am I here? What is my goal? Those are some of the things we use, but we go through this with our staff, and we use it as a tool regularly, both in a team environment. Hey, the motor vehicle statute just changed outside of our control. We have 30 days to implement. Okay, what do we have control over? And so that's one of the big ways we can take ownership in the workplace. The other one is our pause tool. So one of the things about our organization, and I know Lorie and I talked about it at Host9, but really proud of our organization. We have a 97% customer satisfaction rating. At the DMV, people, okay, a lot of people know about the sloths in the kids' movies, right? We've obliterated that stereotype in our office, and it's because of things like this tool and because of honoring what people bring to the table. And so I'm pretty excited when I get to live things out. And so every year, in order to make it easier to live things out in our organization, we create an annual theme. So like making what you value more than a poster on the wall. You can make a pretty shiny poster. Oh, guys, here's what we value. Say, I want to value other women. I want to make it important to me. Okay, so how can we make that more than some pretty post that I put online, right? My highlight reel. How can I make that real? So this is one of our annual themes. It's the first one that I ever put together with my teammate. And every year we put a new one together. And that gives the staff a fresh way to live things out every year. You take it and give them a new lens through which to belong, through which to be an individual, right? And it just breathes fresh life into it to give you that momentum that you need. Our tool here is a way that we are able to get things right more often, more caring, align with what we value. So it's quick, it's ponder, plan, prioritize. Almost anything can wait. Understand your customers and each other. Slow down to apply tools and training. Like often we go to a training, just put it on the shelf, right? I'd encourage anybody watching today or even in the replay, take a note or two and see if you can find one nugget that you can apply, right? Don't just go to a training and then just put it on the shelf. Oh, that was cool. And evaluate whether something's urgent or important. So this is one of the ways we take ownership in our organization. Pause has led me to more success, and I've had to practice it. It's not easy. When we are in authority positions or when we are maybe the one guiding or leading some organization or some effort, it's easy to sometimes just blaze a trail. This has helped me more times than not have my language match my intent, right? So that the impact can be what I intended it to be. This is sort of at the heart, I believe, of what we as women, we got sold sort of a a raw deal, I think, over the decades of as women came into the workforce and were given opportunities, and we've fought for opportunities to be seen with equity and given that room. I think that at times we can tend to backslide. We can tend to be our own worst enemies. And that to me is a disservice. And so one of the things I often encourage is that we partner versus compete with one another. So in our organization, like I mentioned, we leverage the strengths and natural talents. There's some things here, though, that are really simple. When we're coming to a meeting, a project, some planning, some strategic planning, anything, a lunch with someone new comes on the team. Let's assume positive intent. We don't need to make up stories about each other. But we can easily fall into that as a way, I think, as women. Brené Brown says we all want love and belonging. And so in an effort to get love and belonging, sometimes we have a level of insecurity that drives us to judge one another, right? So if we could assume positive intent as we show up for one another in the workplace, like again, the whole thing rises instead. We're not in the opposite ends of a ring competing. We want the same common goals. We want to get there together. One way you can do that is remaining curious. My professional coach, when I met him at first, his name is Walter Kowalski. He owns Breakthroughs Incorporated, and it's a leadership coaching business. And he has taught me to remain curious. Ask for me, it's instead of talk, right? Instead of talk or tell, I need to pause and I need to ask and remain curious so I can learn about the other person versus go on taking control, suspending judgment. For me, this is, I think, one of the best ways we can get ahead with each other in the workplace is that positivity, assuming that they have good to contribute. And again, I'm not going to prefer every personality in the workplace, and I can still be cordial, respectful, interested. One of the values we have is communication. And more often than not, I think the breakdown comes, that's one of the toughest things. Every year we do surveys. How are we doing? We ask our staff, how are we doing? We get good input on communication, and we get, that's where you can grow. Communicate more, communicate better. Communication is just a key to life. But one of the breakdowns we have, oftentimes a kind of a pitfall as women, is we don't deliver the mail to the right address. So we talk about it with someone in the break room versus go pull that person aside and have a personal conversation. And it's hard. It takes courage. Hey, in this meeting, I don't understand what you brought to the table. Can we talk about it a little more so that I don't jump to conclusions, right? I don't assume the worst or catastrophize, right? So delivering the mail to the right address is just having that conversation with the person that it involves. I don't need to involve 3 or 4 other people before I get to involving myself in that situation and for problem solving. So that's just a really small way that we can show respect for one another. It also cuts down on misinformation, misunderstanding. It saves time, right? So you're saving your organization time by talking to the right person about the things, getting the right stakeholders involved when you're making decisions, and then understanding our role. We use a tool called RACI for this. I learned about this at this organization. I've been with the county for 8 years. This was some of my IT folks, people who run projects a lot. They taught me this tool, and it's widely used in the marketplace. But it's, what role do I play, right? How can I show up the best way at work if I don't know my role in this particular meeting, project, effort, task? What's my role? And that way it helps me know what good looks like so I can be successful. So at the beginning of an effort or a project, we map RACI as a part of our organization. And am I the one doing the task? Am I the one who the task is accountable to? And we all work at pleasure of the clerk. And so we're accountable. She's the accountable. We do these tasks and things on her behalf. And so it's important to know what role you're playing. Consulted, like, do I need to be a part of this decision, or does someone need to consult me so that they can move forward? And then informed, you're good, totally empowered, just inform me along the way. And doing that, making that clear. Brené Brown also says clear is kind. we need more kindness in the world, right? Especially with each other. And if we can be clear with each other and stay informed, we can be more successful. We can get to that goal in a much better way. My last key for today is mastering your mindset. So this, to me, we used this we had a Mindset Matters as one of our themes a few years ago, the year after COVID started. So 2021, I believe we did Mindset Matters. And it was a way to come out of the first COVID year and try to care about people. It's another piece that I'm responsible for. It's something I can own, is my own mindset. Now, we all get tempted. I tell a story like you're on your way to work, especially in Castle Rock. If you're on your way to work in Castle Rock, there's a train that goes right through the middle of town. If you don't take Plum Creek and you take Fifth, if you hit the train at the wrong time, you're late for work. And so I use that as an example for my team is, okay, so I hit the train and I'm going to be late. Okay. I can choose right there kind of the course of my day based on my mindset. I do my mindset and okay, this is not going to work. And then the stories I begin telling myself, oh, now I'm late. And now they're going to think I'm a slacker. And then the strategy I use is, well, I get to work while I was already late. Why put in an effort? So my whole strategy for the day comes from the mindset that I started out with. So I could go, you know what? I got a gift. I have 5 minutes. I can sit here. Let me listen to my favorite song, right? I can totally shift the entire way I do my day by the way that I frame my mindset. And it's not easy. We can get off track a lot in this world, especially look at the world and look, if you watch the news even for one day, your mindset can get shattered. So we need ways and techniques to get back on track. We have an opportunity, I believe, to have a mindset that is for each other. There was a book last year, I can't think of his name right now. It was about I'm for you. And it's thinking about the things we're for versus the things we're against. That's a total mindset shift. Let me be focusing on what I'm for. And as women, let's focus on being for each other, right? Celebrate, encourage, lift up. That's a mindset versus the competing, versus the grumbling, versus the judging, right? It's totally a mindset. And so some of the ways we can get back on track when our mindset gets shifted for whatever reason, the intent we had for the day gets off, is something I learned from business strategist and author Tony Robbins. I went to in the middle of COVID. Couldn't do professional development, right? Couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything. So I did it's called Unleash the Power Within, and it's a 4-day seminar. I was in a hotel room by myself in a live active environment with like millions of people around the world. And he taught this lesson, and it's the 3 ways to master your mindset. It's physiology, focus, and language. I put the link in here so that folks can look it up the way he says it. But basically, your physiology is your physical body and things related to your senses, all the systems. You can quickly. Tony Robbins says that the quickest way to change your mindset is a physical way. So a lot of times I'll start a meeting and I'll be like, "Come on, guys, physiology," and we'll stand up. My entire leadership team knows this about me. I'm like, "Let's do it. We're doing 3 breaths," and we stand up. We do breaths. Or we stretch, or Tony does the sound of excitement at his seminars. And so sometimes I make them do, what does it sound like to be excited? Doing that tiny little physiology scientifically quickly changes your brain and can get you back on track to a fresh start. It's just a little technique. Focus. What am I focused on? Right? So I'm at the train. Am I focused on what just happened? Am I focused on how I can make it better? Right? What am I for versus against? What's going for me? What can happen versus what can't? So what we focus on. And then the language we use. He talked about the fact that he used to use language like, I'm frustrated or I'm this. And if we take a hold of that, go, wait a minute, is that the right word in this situation? I'm fascinated, right? So instead of going down the words we use are powerful. So instead of going down that road of complaining, how can I shift my language? It'll shift my mindset. And then that flows out of that, the way that I do my day. And so that's the other key for me that has worked in our organization, especially to get back on track after COVID. But if it's not COVID, it's a war halfway around the world, right? It's someone in need that comes across our path. There are all kinds of things that are going to happen. Someone in our family gets sick. So we're often going to need to go back to these techniques for mindset so that we don't just spiral, and it's tough, but that's why we have each other. That's why we try to lean on one another's strengths. Hey, I'm not doing really great today. My strength isn't positivity. It's not in my top 5. So I tend to, my communications manager, she has positivity in her top 5. And so I often seek her out when I'm having a moment where my mindset is off and I need someone to encourage me. I partner with her and she gives me words of affirmation and I'm able to turn the corner. And so I look for people who have those abilities to speak into my life and get my mindset back on track, because out of that flow all the strategies that we have for our day and for our work. That is what I brought to talk about today. I'm not even sure where I'm at in timing.
You're great. Thank you so much for doing that. Do we have any questions? I've got a few. So if no one else has any, I have a few that I'd like to ask. All right, well, I'll start out. So you talked about using these assessments and then talking about leaning on other people's strengths and knowing those strengths are. So we have taken maybe 5 assessments. I don't know. We take a lot of assessments. I don't know how to put that into actual practice. How do you say, in my mind, I remember for about a month and a half, everyone's good at and forget. So talk to me about how you make that work.
Yep. And that's the part of making it more than a poster, more than an assessment, more than a training I took one day. Yeah. We intentionally, number one, I have team members that can work on it with me. We intentionally embed the language of it in our messaging. So any communication strategies or plans that we have in speaking to the staff, we frame it through that lens. So we'll talk about it in, if we have an announcement, a staffing announcement, if we have our newsletter, we intentionally include that as foundational language. We made little placards for everyone's workspace. Mm-hmm. They display it in a way that if you're coming by to work with them, you can see it. So their top 5 strengths are displayed. So we did a refresh on that this year to make it visible and bring it back to life. A lot of times you have to step back year by year. That's why I do the theme. And this year's theme is serve, and it's an acrostic. And our S, I believe, stands for strengths-based. Okay, I can't think of it right off the top, but we put it into our annual theme. So we find ways to make it living. We talk about it in our coaching sessions. So we have both a strengths-based goal setting worksheet. So we take it and put it in all the parts of the organization. Way we communicate, we put it visible so people who are visual can be reminded. We put it in performance reviews. So we have our core competencies that they're measured on are our values. And as a part of those values, they have to set a strengths-based goal. So we take it and we make it a part of the expectations, right? So people can meet those expectations if you make them clear. So both philosophy and expectations. And so one of the ways we've done that with our staff too is we have an introductory onboarding course called Clerk 101. It's how do we do this here? And so they're introduced to the strengths and other philosophies that we have for the organization and the culture. We have one for supervisors called Clerk 201, supervision. How do we expect that to look here in our organization? And leaders have to live it out. So we have to be an example. But what I will say, and it's to encourage you, is it takes time and consistent practice. And so when we find ourselves slipping or, oh, you know what, that hasn't come up recently, we hold each other accountable. I'll put it in my monthly management meeting as a micro lesson. Mm-hmm. So every month, in order to develop my staff, the leadership team, there's about 18 of us. we do announcements, we do check-ins, operational check-ins, but there's a micro lesson every month. So if you have a team meeting and you can embed a 15 minutes, that's where I put it in. So I teach them a worksheet, or here's strengths-based development. If you have somebody that's struggling, here's the latest we did this year. I assigned it as an expectation, a goal for everyone on the management team. So I put it in their, what we call talent center, but I assigned it to them. Everyone needed to do what's called a stay interview. It's a Gallup worksheet. It's a Gallup product. It takes you through a set of questions with your direct reports that help you understand what is their career path mean to them? How are they going to be loyal? What gets them up coming to work? What do they look forward to? What's their greatest success? What can I do better as a manager? It sets you up with a set of questions that continues to embed the language across the organization. And so some of those things are the way. It takes time and practice. Year one, the director of HR, when I told her I wanted to change the culture, said to me, okay, good luck. That's going to take a few years. And she kind of smirked. And I was like, okay, I'm up for the task. Roll your sleeves. So I would encourage you to go back to the buy-in from the top, decide what that philosophy is, and then you just start creating one or two things each year to work on. And don't boil the ocean, right? Don't try to herd all the cats. Just do one or two things at a time. And that's what we do each year. We build on that year before and the success that we've had and what lessons have we learned. The next year we add something else. And that's how we've made it something that is living and breathing.
Those are some really good ideas too, to kind of make that part of what happens. We've taken our values and our mission and we've really incorporated that into everything that we do and things like that. But we haven't really, those strengths assessments, I just know they're all good at improvements. And what about the annual theme? Do you have is it like a word each year that you kind of?
So, because empowerment is in our vision, a lot of the tasks and projects and people I have around me, because that's how we get stronger, I partner and empower and delegate. The annual theme is something I have a passion for. My background is in writing and creative writing. And so it's my one project, I guess, if you will, that I get to dream up every year. And I've been given the privilege to do that. And then I work on it with my communications manager. I'm a verbal processor, so it could look 10 different ways before we get to the end of the year. But usually by the mid-year, I have some inspiration of what might be making sense with what we're going through at that time. Started out with an acrostic. So some years it's a word, and then we give some language to the word. Some years it's a phrase. So it just kind of depends on what's going on. We don't do an acrostic every year because people can kind of get worn out on that. So this year, with a new clerk coming into the office, going back to the why we're here, which is to serve the public, was perfect. It was easy to do the serve theme because we had a new administration coming in. We had a new leader coming in. And so there was something informing what might work for the organization for that year. And so I brainstorm and think, what's coming up? In some of your strategic sessions, what's coming up in the next 12 to 24 months that might inform what's going to help us prosper in this next year, what's going to help us be successful and be strong. And so then I brainstorm and it's exciting. And then the clerk and I write a letter based on that theme that is on the back of each of our cards. And we make that a cubicle, called a cubicle poster, but we make that a handout that they can then put in their space and be reminded of. And then usually, and one of the other cool things that I think has come out of it, but it didn't come out of it the first year. It was probably 3 years in. So adding something new was when the county moved to the Teams platform, and we have that as a way to coordinate together and collaborate with one another. And because we're in 4 different locations, buildings across the county, how can we be team when we're not all together all the time? Some people are working remote. Some people are working in a different office, or they're at meetings a lot. And so how do we create this cohesiveness? We do on Mondays and Fridays, we do a general standing teams post and engage everyone in a prompt or a question where we share. And so we this year it is Made to Serve Mondays and Strengths Fest Friday. And so we, again, put those themes, those words, those language, and then I assign that to everyone in leadership throughout the year. Hey, it's your turn to do it and engage everyone down to even our lead specialists get to be involved in creating that engagement across the teams. So that's some of how we embed the theme and keep it going.
We did question of the day.
Love it. Yeah.
Been lax the last 3 or 4 days.
I have reminders. So that's why I have the standing reminders on the Outlook calendar. And that's why I had to elicit help, right? Because if it's all on me, it's not going to live, right? So you have to elicit and partner with people who have those ideas. People have great ideas if you just involve them or ask them. And we've seen some really cool engagement on those posts when they're super simple. When put a meme that expresses, whatever it's Wednesday, it's the middle of the week or whatever. Put a meme that expresses, woo, we're almost done with the week, and then it's hilarious, and you get all of these people engaged. And so it's fun to bring out those different ways that people like to belong and be a part of things.
Codie, I've got a question for you. Well, first off, when I heard that you get like 7,000 comments each year about the clerk and recorder, and when I heard that 97% of them were positive, I don't know how that happens in a world where, you get on the Nextdoor app and if somebody's cat looks at you the wrong way, you'll hear about it on the Nextdoor app. So that's impressive. So obviously you're doing a lot of things right. My question for you is, as a leader of 100 different people that are creating that kind of engagement with the community that's that positive, what percent of your time is working in the business, doing the things that you have to do versus on the business of culture and creating that environment where everybody can improve and all these other things you're talking about? Because you obviously have your day-to-day things you have to get done, and then everything else is how you get the great performance. So help us understand.
We have to keep the lights on. These are required businesses. One of the unique things is we don't have competitors. Our customers have to come to us. So we don't have that to battle with. We're the only place they can get these things done. And so, we have to bake in time. I have hired a few positions that have the time to dedicate to the efforts that we come up with, but it's embedded in anyone in leadership in my organization is they are required to participate. And we call that hire for fit. When someone comes into a leadership role in our organization, usually they've heard about it and they're attracted to the culture that they've heard about. And so they're ready and excited to participate, but it's a part of their regular work, if you will. Like I said, our performance metrics are the core values of the organization. The two additional ones we added for leadership are strategic planning and employee development. And so by having those as the items you're going to get measured on and giving them permission and time to carve that out, and I would say we help each other carry the water. So it's not on any one person's plate. And if you can spread that out across your team, that's how we get it done, instead of it being just, I didn't hire one person to do the whole job. That wouldn't be possible because it has to be authentic and real. And so that's one of the ways we do it. The business operations, we have, deputies in each office that are responsible for the operations of the office. And they have managers or supervisors that their job is operations and personnel. So yes, a primary focus they have is their operational job. If you're a branch supervisor, starting at the branch supervisor level for motor vehicle, their job is, so they have a lead and so the structure, I guess, Sam, is another way to say that. But the way we structure our organization allows for people focused on tasks that RACI, you're responsible. And then those who go into the leadership roles, is starting with a supervisor, their job is to coach. So we allow it, I guess, is the answer. We allow it and we spread it out.
So from a brand new hire,
yeah,
they're obviously their involvement in teaching that culture is different than your involvement in it, yes. but they still, your structure sets it up so that they're learning it and accountable for living it.
And we rotate. So we've been able to, year over year, look for ways to rotate, say, frontline staff off of that role, that we take turns going to the different trainings or giving them opportunities for development so that it can become something that's real, so that everybody gets to participate. That's that equity piece. We value equity. We value what each person brings to the table. And so we need to be willing to equally demonstrate development and investment. And then hire for fit is the part where when people come on board, they have to take ownership of their own personal investment in those natural talents. They bring the natural talents to the table, but if they don't invest in them, they don't get lived out as strengths. So it takes personal accountability to be able to make it work. Like I said, I think the folks that work for us are so shocked that they get these opportunities working in a frontline business that they're just thrilled, and it creates loyalty and engagement and, momentum when you give someone permission to be themselves.
Well, you obviously, throughout this whole conversation, exude genuine. And I think the results in your numbers show that's the result of it, is that you're genuine in your culture. And it's not just a catchphrase or anything like that. So good job.
I appreciate that.
True.
Anyone else have any other questions? I've got one last one, if you didn't. So my question is one that I ask just about everybody. So you're on the more successful, have a lot of experience behind you. What would you have done differently or wish you had known when you were on the beginning of that journey?
Just to give grace to myself. I am a big idea person. I'm fairly conceptual and creative. And so I wanted it all right away. I had seen it working in other places. I was inspired by my personal coach and some of the content I had been exposed to, but I was a little impatient. I really wanted it to just come alive. And so if I could go back, it's just to be a little patient, to understand it takes time, and that's okay. One of the things, I think this is a good place to finish too. One of the things my coach told me in the very beginning is not to make others wrong. So to be able to give myself that same gift, this is going to take time, and that's okay. And so that permission to give yourself grace versus, as women, oftentimes we have driven ourselves through perfection to try to break glass ceilings, to try to accomplish all of these things. And like Superwoman complex, we don't have to be it all. And so if I had the chance to go back, I would have whispered that in my own ear early on and just remembered it's just progress, not perfection.
I love that. I love that solution. And thank you so much for having
This was delightful.
Experience. We really appreciate it.
I loved it. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Codie.
Thank you, Codie. You're the best.